Amartian.
She Must Shall Go Free was a hymn, so it's a really old hymn, 18th century maybe hymn, William Gadsby. And to my knowledge, never had its own original melody. Most of the hymns, a lot of the hymns didn't. Most of the hymns in your hymn book didn't have their own melodies. They shared one of a handful of common melodies, and that's why there's a handful of hymns you can sing to a lot of different tunes, is because most of them, that's what most folks were doing. So that song I don't think had its own tune ever. And I had just moved to town, and I was, my wife, who's also an artist, she is a gifted writer of hymns, hymn melodies, corporate kind of melodies. And so she was wrapped up in this Indelible Grace movement, this thing coming out of Belmont University, Reformed University Fellowship, RUF. And this guy, Kevin Twitt, who as soon as I moved to town and I met Kevin Twitt, boy, I mean, the most intimidating person I probably ever met. He was trained at Berkeley for music and at Covenant for theology, and I just couldn't even sit in a room with him. But he was such a gifted musician and had gotten a lot of artists to write new melodies to a lot of old hymn texts, many of which, again, didn't have their own melodies ever. And so I started to kind of be around these folks, and they were recording some of the Indelible Grace music, and I kind of, by marriage, got to come and be part of those recordings, and I got to come and sing some of those songs. And so She Must and Shall Go Free was kind of my first attempt. As I was flipping through Gadsby's hymnal, I found that one. And considering that I was making a record about the church, and that song it's so emphatic. It's so confidently emphatic, and I love that line. It's just so, she must and shall. It's like this amazing language. It's just, there's not a chance this is not going to happen. And that had so much to do with what I was learning at the time about my role in the church's role in culture, the ultimate victory of the church, even though she is a mess, in any given moment in history. That she was in this process of being made beautiful and Jesus coming back, and that the church was literally the office by which the kingdom was going to come. It was literally by way of his people is the way all this stuff was going to happen. All these promises were going to be kept by way of his people. Jesus' body was going to do all this. And so when I heard it, and I'm pretty sure Sandra helped me write that melody, and just something about it, I thought, well, there's my title. I mean, if you're going to make a record about the church, what better title than She Must and Shall Go Free? I mean, that was the content. The song Lover was, again, that same content. And because when you start talking about freedom and the surety of freedom, there being no chance it's not going to happen, that you're going to be set free, you're going to be liberated, that you're going to be made, things are going to be made right. What that does is dispels fear. And that's so much of the problems that the church has in the West are from fear. Fear of blank results in this behavior, results in this new cultural law that we make for ourselves, that we sell to each other as scripture, and we keep believing it's making us righteous, when really it's just a guardrail we set up because we're desperately fearful of something that we need not be fearful of because of Jesus and his keeping of the law on our behalf. Because of the fact that we're never loved by God because we can keep the law. And that's why, he loves us just the same right now in the depths of our worst sin than he will one day in glory when we're sinning no more, because he only ever loves us for one reason, and that's Jesus. He loved us for that reason then, he loves us for that reason now. And so the more you kind of think about that and you meditate on that and how that speaks to that day coming when the church must and shall be liberated, it just dispels fear. And that just seemed like the most important thing. And I literally have spent records and records on top of records talking about working to try to dispel my own fear in order that I might actually live like a free and sane person, which when I'm being a religious person, I'm not. So that's why that just seemed like so important. Second song in the album.
I remember tracking that song and the band playing that song and Derek singing a scratch vocal and hearing that line and it just being a very enlightening, a very inspiring line to have go by every chorus, every couple of, every 30 seconds or so. She must and shall go free, and realizing that's about the church, and like Derek said, very emphatic. So that, very inspiring tracking day in the studio that day.
And I wonder what William Gadsby would have thought, because most of the old hymns didn't have choruses; they had many, many verses. And so what we did is we took the second to last, or the last verse, the last two lines of it are "She must and shall go free." So we just pulled those out and just made a chorus out of it. So that's what we're emphasizing. He wrote it, but I hope one day we'll find out if William Gadsby likes our chorus. But that was certainly that was my own doing. But.
And I'll send out an army just to bring you back to me. 'Cause regardless of your brother's life,